So if it's written in first person, that's kind of obvious. But if it's written in third person, then what would your next step be? Would it be sort of like tallying the male and female
Yeah.
characters?
Yeah. So if it's written in third person, then how many male and female characters do you have in the story?
Right.
And the reason I put that one in there was because, yeah, as I listened to you do mine, I realized it would have either sounded really funny or would have been really hard, because there's way more male characters in my story than there are female.
It's a great
So,
example because, really the first two novels in your series were largely from her perspective.
yeah,
It was only the last one that you switched back and forth between the male and the female, correct?
yeah,
Okay. Um, but it's a great example because, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before about how, and as we said before, as long as it's in third person,
yeah,
even if it's mainly from the female perspective, but there's, a lot of male characters, you and I were sort of agreeing that we would err on the male narrator side as opposed to the female narrator side.
right,
In that case, we are sort of tipped in that direction personally because it seems like they have slightly more range to cover both the male and the female. If
right.
you know,
Yeah, so the one I'm listening to right now, um, it's a romance novel, and so far, there's been scenes with like four men together, and then there's one or two females, and then there's like, I don't know, seven men and boys, and like a 16-year-old boy, and the 16-year-old boy he sounds too low. It just sounds weird. I don't know. She has a beautiful voice. I really like listening to her. It just, when you have these scenes with so many male characters, I get to where okay, just get back to the female characters because I like listening to that and listening to all these males. Like there's one man that he's been described as like a young gentleman, but he sounds like an old lady to me. It just, I don't know. It's kind of personal preference. I know some people love listening to, like my daughter, she's listening to Outlander right
mhm.
now, and that is a female narrator. And she really likes it, you know. Um, and I started listening to it, and yeah, I mean, I'm still, there's just, it seems like it's physically impossible for most women that I know of to really do a convincing male voice. And then to me, it just becomes kind of cartoonish and comical. And
And it takes you out of the story. I mean,
yeah,
I think ultimately that's all we're saying is that
yeah,
any distraction from the story is obviously not what we want. And for me, that I totally agree with you. But I think the key here is what you touched on a moment ago in the like anything that distracts from the story and takes you out of it and makes you think, oh, that sounds like an old lady instead of a 16-year-old boy. It's just not what you want. That's not to say that that doesn't happen, you know, even if you are using a male narrator. Now, the reason, again, I think why we're saying that is simply because it's much easier for a man to raise his register a little bit. Again,
not all can though. Some of them
so-
do sound sort of comical and silly too. If they sound too,
exactly, which is very
yeah,
important to listen to in the samples. You
yeah.
want to listen to how they do the women.
Well, and I would even take it a step further and say, purchase one of the books they've produced and listen to it. Listen to an entire book, not just the samples.
But yeah, I think it's just physically, biologically, it's easier for a man to cover, the higher range than it physically is for a female to cover the lower range. Because I mean, I come from a singing background as well, and even the women with the lowest voices, still couldn't touch the bass notes. Do you know what I mean? It's just physically impossible. I'm sure there are some out there, but
yeah, they might sound kind of funny trying to do Max or some of the characters that you did the lower voices with, you know, or Merrick. I mean,
right? Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine without it being comical or distracting. That's all we're saying.
Yeah.
What is less distracting? What serves the story more? Because again, just to sort of I'm not suggesting that what I do is not distracting at times as well, because I'm sure it is. I worry about it. Like you had fairies. Like the first time I had to do the fairies, you were worried about it. I was worried about it. And I'm sure there are any number of people that would listen to that and be like, roll their eyes and totally be taken out of the story. I hope not, but I'm sure.
I've never heard anything like that. No.
Really?
Everybody likes the fairies. That's their favorite part. That's everyone's favorite part.
Really?
Yeah.